William Crawford was born in 1732 in what is now Berkeley County, West Virginia, to Irish Scots farmers. In 1749, Crawford became acquainted with the young surveyor George Washington when he took lodging from Crawford's family while surveying in the area. They were both 17 years of age at the time, and what was to become a lifelong friendship soon developed. He accompanied Washington on surveying trips, and Washington taught Crawford the trade. Crawford surveyed over 2,000 acres in Fayette County. Like Washington, Crawford wanted to join the military and explore the frontier. That opportunity arrived during the French and Indian War. On July 9, 1755, at the beginning of the French and Indian War, in what is now Braddock, Pennsylvania, a British and American force of about 1,500 under General Edward Braddock moved to take Fort Duquesne in the hope to gain control of the strategic Ohio Valley for Great Britain. The British suffered a devastating defeat by a force of 600 Indians and 30 French and Canadian troops. Braddock, mortally wounded in the battle, requested George Washington accompany him on the march to oversee his burial. William Crawford, along with George Washington, survived this bloody battle. On September 14, 1758, Crawford was a member of General John Forbes' army, which captured Fort Duquesne, where Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania now stands. The French had beaten off the initial attack, but their force of 600 could not hold against the British force of 6,000. The British and Americans rebuilt the fort and renamed it Fort Pitt after Prime Minister William Pitt, who ordered the capture of that strategic location. William Crawford continued to serve in the military when, between the years of 1763 and 1766, at least 14 Native American tribes rose up against the British and Americans in the Great Lakes region led by Ottawa Chief Pontiac. Indian warfare on the North American front was brutal. The war eventually reached a stalemate, and negotiation with accommodation ultimately brought its end. Crawford had made his first trip west of the mountains while in General Forbes' army and was so impressed with the region he vowed to live there one day. In 1765, Crawford built a cabin along the Jokahaney River in what is now Connellsville, Pennsylvania. His wife and 3 children joined him a year later, and he supported his family as a farmer and a fur trader. In 1744, a conflict arose between the colony of Virginia and the Shawnee and Mingo Indian nations. Lord Dunmore, the governor of Virginia, declared war with the hostile Indian nations, and Crawford received a major's commission and led an expedition that destroyed 2 Mingo villages in retaliation for Indian raids in Virginia. The war ended with the Battle of Point Pleasant on October 10, 1774, with Virginia victorious. When the American Revolutionary War began, Crawford recruited a regiment for the Virginia line of the Continental Army, and October 11, 1776, Continental Congress appointed him colonel of the 7th Virginia Regiment. He led his regiment in the Battle of Long Island and the retreat across New Jersey. He then crossed the Delaware with George Washington and fought in the battles at Trenton and Princeton. During the Philadelphia campaign, he commanded a scouting detachment for Washington's army. In 1781, he retired from military service. In 1782, General William Irvine persuaded Crawford to come out of retirement and lead an expedition against enemy Indian villages along the Sandusky River. Before leaving, he made out his last will and testament. Crawford led about 500 volunteers deep into Indian territory, hoping to surprise them. But they were not surprised. Crawford and his men found themselves surrounded and attempted a retreat. Crawford and dozens of his men were captured. Many were immediately killed, but they reserved Crawford, the big captain, for a more terrible death. It was the afternoon of June 11th when Crawford was forced to strip naked, tied to a stake, and was tortured for 2 hours by the Delaware Indians before they scalped and burned him. Upon hearing of his old friend's death, Washington said, "It is with the greatest sorrow and concern that I have learned the melancholy tidings of Colonel Crawford's death. He was known to me as an officer of much care and prudence, brave, experienced, and active. The manner of his death is shocking to me." The death of William Crawford is not only one of the most iconic episodes in the history of the colonial frontier, it is also one of those incidents of history that reveals the awful depravity of the human heart. It is a story that haunts the soul. "235 years after Colonel Crawford's torturous death, counties in both Pennsylvania and Ohio bear his name. There are several historical markers in Ohio that chart the course of the ill-starred Sandusky campaign, including a phallic monument at the approximate spot of the burning, just north of the tiny town of Crawford, Ohio. In Connellsville, Pennsylvania, tourists can visit the reconstructed modest cabin home of Colonel Crawford and enjoy the many festivals in his name.
A gallant company, as we do here, equipped themselves big a volunteer. Their number 489, to tear down Sandusky was their design. Of May, I tell them to you, they crossed the Ohio, as I understand, where brave Colonel Crawford gave the command. With courage undaunted, onward they steered, through Indian country with no dread or fear, where Nicholson's lover and Jonathan Zane conducted them over the Sandusky plain. There was brave Colonel Crawford, ever so bold. The 4th day of June let the Indians behold. On the plains of Sandusky at 3 the same day, both armies did meet in the battle array. The treacherous Gertie, he gave the command. On Indian plains he boldly did stand. Our men taking aim upon him they did fire.
And thanks to his 6th great-granddaughter, Sherry Shepherd Estraw, Estahaki will honor and remember this patriotic hero's story and the name that lives in volumes of history, Colonel William Crawford.